What's up, you guys? Howdy. How's everyone doing? Move some stuff around here. What's up, Jose? How you doing today? Logan in the chat. What's up, Logan? All right. Silly Goose is Mel, right? Am I right? Am I right? Let's find out. Let me bring, well, before I bring that over, let me do this. Double check it. Perfect. Let me bring this out. Angels in the chat. What's up? I'm doing fine. Feeling a little tired though. Yeah. Tired. Agreed. My webcam I just don't have it up and running today. I've been rearranging some stuff in my office, so my office is torn up and you guys don't need to see all that. But today we're actually going to be creating the principles of motion design in After Effects. I'm sorry, in Cinema 4D. The ones that we did in After Effects, we're going to create in Cinema 4D today. And so we're going to be doing this one right there. I'm going to go over the assignment here in just a second. I just want to note that next week is a spring break. Let me just double check here. But I'm pretty sure that is what it is. Spring break should be next week. Yes, spring break. 3/11 through 3/17. Jasmine, what's going on? Oh, Jasmine, I did get your note in there. I was going to reach out to you tomorrow. But yeah, so spring break is next week. And so what we're going to do today and Thursday's class is I'm going to teach you guys about the principles of motion design inside of Cinema 4D. Whatever we don't get finished today, we'll finish on Thursday's class. Now, the due date range for this is Monday the 11th, so until the 25th of March. So because now that we're doing the 2 week, let me see if I can pull up my calendar. 1 second, you guys, because I know it's right up here. Okay. Let me see a different calendar. Okay. I'm just going to bring this one over. Okay, so don't worry about these, you guys. These are there. I'm just going to close all of this stuff. Whatever. Anyways, shutting that off so it's not so busy. This is just my regular calendar stuff, but so the due date range for this project is going to be the 11th through the 25th. So because I've now extended it to a 2-week deadline range, you might have to do some work over the week of spring break because I can't push this project due date to April 1st because it's just too far away. So it's still due on the 25th. And that's the latest that you guys can turn this in, right? So over next week, if you guys if you have any missing projects or any zeros, as far as projects go, in your in your assignments, then, work on them over spring break. We're not going to do the revision assignment just quite yet. I want you guys to get this one done first, and then we'll be working on the revisions assignment. But, while you guys are on spring break, utilize that time well if you have missing assignments in the class, because, class is moving fast. We're going to have a lot more projects moving forward, and we want to get those done. Also, the participation question is going to be due on the 11th, right? Because the 11th is no school. So I have it pushed back out an extra week. So it's due March 18th, right? Participation grades, hard deadlines, can't turn those in. If you guys have zeros, you have zeros. But moving forward, you want to get those turned in. If you guys feel like you're not... Eric, what's going on? How are you doing today? If you guys feel that, right now, spring break is pretty much marks almost halfway through the course. If you feel that you're not doing well in the course at this point, might be a good time to reevaluate if you want to stay within the course, and if you can get the work completed and continue the work, or if you might want to withdraw and take it a different semester. Either way, if you have those kind of concerns or anything, you could bring those to me. And if you get a bunch of work done over spring break, still submit that stuff to me, and I will try and get that graded. Today I finished grading all the rest of the typography assignments. Here, let me go to the modules. I finished the typography assignment grading, and then I also finished grading your participation questions. So next I'm going to start grading the Real and Surreal project, and then we'll move on to the Principles of Motion Design projects. So, yeah, that's kind of what the next couple weeks are going to look like. Well, this week and next week, right? Because next week is going to be the break. Yay. I think we're all kind of ready for that, but I'll still be working. So, when it comes to... you guys all did really good on these participation questions, as far as like making sure to like figure out what the definition of some of these processes were. Excuse me. Some of the sub-processes within the main, the main process of different stages, and there's a pre-production, post-production, and the final stage. So you all did really well in that one. This participation question is going to be reviewing a video and talking about maybe style a little bit more. So I think you guys will have fun with this one. But all of the participation questions, they're going to lead into kind of like a bigger project that we're going to have towards the end of the semester, understanding like what storyboarding is and animatics are, and those kinds of things are going to be important when it comes to like starting to create your own type of story to certain projects. So keep those things in mind, right? Now, the students who I graded their typography projects not in class, like over the live stream, I left you guys comments in your assignment itself. So make sure that you write those comments down, or copy and paste them, or download them and put them somewhere where you can access them later, because it's feedback for when we do have the revision round and you guys have to update your projects. You'll want to use that feedback I've given you. So just keep that in mind as well. Efren's in the chat. What's up, dude? Mel changed your name. Cool. What's up? All right, you guys. So with the Principles of Motion Design in Cinema 4D, we're going to be creating something very similar to this. You have an impact scene, you have squashing and stretching, basic same things, right? We're going to be focusing on squash and stretch, anticipation, using impact, and the weight principles, right? But, excuse me. I am so sorry, you guys. My little bit chesty today. I don't know if anyone's been dealing with the allergies lately, but I've been dying every morning when I wake up. And so just making sure that this is just kind of to reiterate the grasp on the principles of animation or motion design And so we're just kind of doubling down on that by creating this project, but doing it inside of Cinema 4D. Because I think that it's actually easier to do inside of Cinema 4D, to be honest. But, some people kind of struggle with this one too. Now, a good reference for you guys on using the graph editor is right here. This is from School of Motion. This is a fantastic guide for you guys to go through, and they even give you a download option to download the project here, and talks about like the dope sheet view or F curve mode, or working within the graph editor, things you can do alongside with little GIFs that you can save and reference later, right? So I'm not going to go over this, but I left this here for you guys to kind of look over as you want or need. Now, obviously for online students who don't follow the live stream, you can see the assignment overview right there. So we are going to be creating 3 scenes again. Each of these scenes have beginning templates for you guys, right? So I've highlighted the beginning templates for the templates for you guys here in red. So you can go ahead and start downloading those as you want. And the lesson alongside of them, and as well as like the bonus option, because this project comes with the ability to get bonus points here. So with the squash and stretch, you will have a dice that you will start off with that we are going to apply squash and stretch to. And then there's going to be a bonus lesson that I'm going to give you guys, which is an additional point on how to create a tune bounce, which is actually quite a bit easier than this one. So an additional 20 bonus points, very easy to get. And I think that you guys will be very surprised on how you can just add a little extra points for yourself. So this will be not only the dice, but if you want to add that additional tune bounce, you guys can with the ball. And then we're going to be doing heavy and light impact with hammers that will show anticipation, right? And then we will also be doing a light and a heavy bounce inside of Cinema 4D again. But this time we're going to have like a ping pong ball, and then we're going to have the heavy one as well, right? And we're going to be moving in multiple directions. This ball is not going to just like bounce up and down. It's going to be moving in multiple coordinates. So important one. In the past ones, if you guys do watch this lesson here, it includes this tune ball in this one, which I don't want you guys to do, because really the tune ball is more about squashing and stretching, which I wanted to be focused on this. So if you guys do watch any of these, just move the tune ball into this section of the project and we'll be good to go. Deliverable single MP4 with all 3 scenes of your principle of motion design in 3D, 24 frames per second, 1920, 1080. If you bring this into, or when you bring this into After Effects, please make sure to interpret your footage to 24 frames per second if needed. That way you don't have any frame rate issues going on. Here is the rubric for you guys to look at, just to make sure that you get this like checklist before you submit it in. Jasmine asked, I've been dealing with a cough and stuffy nose all weekend. Yeah. I'm telling you guys, I think it's it's just been windy. Like, at least where I'm around, I'm in Sunny Slope area, so it's been quite windy. I'm trying to drink a tea, but I bought these, like, I wish my camera was on because I'd show you. It's this Spindrift, like those sparkling waters, but this one that I got was like half lemon, half tea, and it's so gross, so I'm just trying to drink them up so I don't waste them, but anyways, side note for you guys. So I'm going to move this over to the side. I've already got the projects all downloaded. Let me just kind of set this up real quick. I've got them all downloaded into the Principles of Motion Design project because, we have the 3D folder here. So instead of making 2 folders, just utilizing the one. And these are the templates that I've downloaded. The squash and stretch dice one is not actually in a compressed folder, but these 2 are. I have had students again ask me how to unzip files, so I will do this one last time. You select it, right click, and you extract all is what you need to look at. Extract all, right? And then you should be good to go. And then what I would do is just delete the little folder that has the little zip icon on it. So extract them all. Bring this over here. I don't need to see them when they're complete. I'm going to extract it. And then I am going to delete the one that I just did. Which one was that? Graphics, 3D. The impact on this one. And this is spelled wrong. I'm going to have to fix that. Extract. Bring this over. Extract that. Let's go in here. In fact, I don't think... Oh, yeah. A Studio HDR. Okay. It doubles down on the folders, which I think is so dumb. Anyways, let's go ahead and open the squash and stretch dice to start off with that one. Is anyone going out of town for spring break? Just let me know. All right, so when you open the dice, the squash and stretch template, right? It's going to have your die right here, and then it also has a floor. We're going to get rid of this floor, just going up here to this top layer, and you can just delete it like that. It does have a protection tag on it, but that's not a big deal. I'm just going to delete that. And instead, I'm going to put in here a backdrop. So I'm going to go to my primitives and click backdrop right here. That looks great. In fact, let me pull back. Let me pull back a little bit, rotate around, kind of zoom in a little bit and get like a different look on here. Okay, that's good. And then I am going to kind of extend this out, right? So I'm going to, before I do all of that, I'm going to kind of get a setup, an angle here where I can set up a quick camera and have it in the general vicinity of where I want it, and then put a protection tag on it so I don't touch it. And I'm not going to look through it the entire time, but I think kind of like an upwards angle like this, maybe a little bit like that, and back will be good for this, because if we look at the, if I just bring this over real quick, I'll just leave this on this side. Oops. Let me do this. It's kind of like angled up and down pointing. So I think this kind of looks good because we're going to add another object in here. So I might even just kind of rotate it a little bit this way. Right there. And I'm going to, let's add a camera. We want to make sure it's a standard camera. So not all of your guys' stuff might be standard here. It should be when it comes to this template. I am going to, oh, look, you guys, my license expires in 3 days. I was like, what is that? I'm going to select just the regular camera right here. Just a regular standard camera. If yours does not look like this, you can hit Shift-C and just type in camera and just make sure that you're picking the ST camera right there, standard, right? Instead of these Redshift cameras, because we're going to be doing everything in the standard render, especially for this project. Now, the other thing I want to do is I actually want to save this with my name on it. So I'm just going to go File, Save Project As, and I'm just going to say Makara, Squash, and Stretch. And then I'm going to save it like that, so that I can kind of delete this template and not have to deal with it. Or you could keep the template in there. You could add an additional folder into your C4D files one. That might be a good idea. So you have the template there just in case anything gets messed up. You can write templates. And just take this and pop it right into there. Same with this one and this one. Right? There we go. So now I have my custom one there. And I am going to now, so we're looking through the camera when this little square is highlighted. We're going to unhighlight that. We don't want to be looking through the camera, but we want to add a protection tag onto that. So you can either right click and go to, I think it's under animation tags. Nope, not that one. I want to try and find it here, just so I know where it's at. Programming, render tags, rigging tags, protection. It's under the rigging tags. But I'm going to throw a protection tag onto this layer just so I don't move my camera, right? Because I don't want to, even if I am in my camera, I just don't want to accidentally move it because I have that problem. So just throwing that tag on temporarily until I'm ready to change anything about my camera. So I'm not looking through my camera right now. I've got my backdrop added, but we obviously need to extend this backdrop so that we're not seeing like the world view there or in the corners anywhere. So I select my backdrop. I'm going to increase the width. Let's try 1200 there. That worked. Let's extend this out. Let's push the depth of this back because I don't want it so close. In fact, I'm going to change this to 2000 just in case. Oh, not 200. 2000. There we go. So now we have our setup kind of ready here. And then we'll add lights and stuff in a little bit, but for right now, let's just work with the backdrop and having the camera all set up. Now when you're looking at the dice initially, you see that we're going to start talking about this, right? When I zoom in here, the geometry of the dice looks kind of chaotic, right? Like we go over here and we kind of move around this dice, and there's a lot of wireframing kind of happening. And that's because this dice is actually in something called a subdivision surface. In fact, let me escape out of there. I'm going to hit T. I'm going to drop this down. Subdivision surface equals smoothing geometry. Okay, so you'll start off with like a primitive, and when you drop that primitive into a subdivision surface, it's going to smooth that out. And so that's kind of what's happening right here. This object doesn't actually have this much geometry going on. There's not really this many polygons to it. Instead, what's happening is the subdivision surface is dividing the actual polygons that are on the object itself to smooth it out, right? So it's kind of like a hack way, but it works great. So what do I mean by that? If I throw in a cube here, let's obviously zoom out because this cube is massive. And we bring this cube up, and let me just kind of look at it like this. And this cube right now only has 6 sides, right? So even though we're looking at the wireframe of everything, the cube, there's only 6 polygons to this cube. So we need to create some more geometry so you guys can understand what I'm saying. So I'm going to select the cube up here in my objects tab, and I'm going to increase the segments to like 5, 5, 5, right? So we have more polygons added to the surface. We're segmenting this cube up, right? And so when I look at this, it's all got hard edges. But if I were to click over here onto these are effectors, and then these ones right here, purple are the deformers, and I think these ones are called effectors. That's what I'm pretty sure they're called. And so if you go and you long click on your effector, subdivision surface is the first one that you see. And I'm going to click and add that to the scene. And then I'm going to take that cube that I made, and I'm going to drop it to be a child of the subdivision surface. And notice what happens is it takes all of those polygons that we had created. You know, we had subdivided that cube, or we had divided that cube into different sections to have 5, 5, and 5 on each side. And so it took all of those polygons that we had originally, and it divides them into more polygons to create this smoothing effect to the object. Now you can select your subdivision surface up here, and you can increase the amount, and it will increase the amount of subdivisions that you see in your, so there's well, let me kind of back up here. There's viewport subdivisions and there's renderer ones. So usually I try and keep these the same, right? And I try not to increase this a bunch, because the more that this subdivides, it's going to really eat up your render times. But you can obviously increase the subdivision amounts that you have on your objects using this subdivision amount down here in your objects panel below in your attributes. But usually keeping it around 2 is good. And then what I would actually do is add more geometry to the cube itself and not to the subdivision surface itself. But you're going to see this a lot with like modeling and stuff. Usually, like, you know, you'll have like an object that looks very low poly. If you guys understand what low poly is, it just means low polygons. So it's kind of chunky looking. And then you throw a subdivision surface on it and it smooths that out. Like, think of vases and other objects that are nice and smooth. And so that's kind of that's exactly what's happening with this die here. So the die is actually in a subdivision surface. If I delete this, what I just created, and we go looking back at the dice right here, it is actually in a subdivision surface right here. So if I zoom over into the panel, this is the subdivision surface. It's just been renamed, and this is the actual die itself. When you're animating this project, especially this one, you want to animate the actual subdivision surface and not the shape. Okay, so make sure that you check this button so that it furls this little thing up, and that when you go to animate it, you animate the subdivision surface. Why do I say that? Look at where the anchor point, essentially, right, to the subdivision surfaces. And then if I were to click the main shape here, the die, that anchor point is all flipped around and backwards, meaning then if you had to animate this, all of your like what do I want to say? Oh, my brain's a little slow today. All of your like numbers and stuff will be inverse and opposite and negatives, and so this is just a lot harder to keep track of versus making sure that you click the subdivision surface which is upright and in the appropriate orientation. Also, it's at the bottom of the die where the other one is in the center of the die, and when we squash and stretch, remember we want it to happen from the bottom of the object. And so I'm going to just furl this right back up here. And the other thing I want to do before I start animating this die is I want to add some text into the scene. So I'm going to actually hop into my camera view, go back into here, and I'm going to grab a text layer, not the spline, but the actual text itself. And that's going to pop into my scene, and I'm going to push this back a little bit. And we're obviously going to mess around with this, but let me type in, I'm going to change this text to squash. Let's see if it does the 2 lines. Let's do squash and stretch. Actually, let me use an ampersand. Let's see what this looks like. Obviously, it's way too big. Let's drop that height, probably 50. Squash and stretch. Okay, that's not bad. Let's go to 75. The biggest issue that you see, and I know some students, especially with your names, had the same issue, is the feet of the letters here kind of like going below the backdrop. And so we don't want that to happen. You guys can go ahead and put this, a couple different options, right? You can do floating text, which I'm okay with, which I'm probably going to do here. Or what you can do is maybe we change the orientation of this, right? Let's see us doing that. Let me see if I like the way that'll look. Under coordinates, I think it's going to be, yes. Let's do -90 on this axis and push it down into the ground. That's not bad. Let me remove this we'll just update our camera angle with this one, so we're looking more up and down on this, and we can see our text a little bit better. But I think this might be interesting. We'll leave it like this for a minute and see what happens when we go to animate everything. Or what you can do is like have it floating in the air, right? So a couple different options for you. I'm going to not look through my camera anymore, and I'm going to look over here. Now, when I added this backdrop into the scene, the backdrop, I believe, was underneath the die a little bit. So I'm going to go to my different views here, and I'm just going to take this backdrop, making sure I have the backdrop selected, and move that up so it's like actually touching the dice. In fact, let's move the dice down so that the dice is touching the backdrop. Right there. Perfect. Just jumping into the scene, it'll make it a little bit easier for you guys to do that. And let's go ahead and start to animate. So I'm going to bring up my timeline down here. And let's check, before we start the animation, I guess we should check our project settings. So Control D on the keyboard. And over here, 24 FPS. That is great. We want to have at least 3 bounces, right? That's what I have in the assignment. But I'm going to put on here, I'm going to have it longer so that way I can trim it later in After Effects if I want to. That's always a good idea. When you guys are creating animations and scenes and you're working on timing of everything together, it's better to have more and trim that off later than to have less and have to go in and add more. So just keeping that in mind, right? So I'm going to 24 times 5. We'll do the 120 frames. Project time. 24 times 5. There we go. And I'm going to save that. Let's hop into the render settings real quick because I just want to make sure I have this all done. Viewport render is probably going to be good for you guys, so I'm going to leave it there. Go to viewport render, make sure that effects is checked on and geometry only, right? And if you guys want to do the standard or the physical render, you're more than welcome to. I would just say, for the sake of this class right now, we're going to do it in the viewport render. Under save file, I'm going to, let's see here. Let's pick my folder. Not typography, we'll go to here. This one, PNG sequences. I'm going to right click and add a new folder. This one's called Squash and Stretch. Okay. And double click into there because that's where I'm going to save this when I'm done rendering. PNG's perfect. Alpha channel always. Just click that out of habit. And then under output, change this to 1920 by 1080. And 72 resolution is fine. 24 frames a second, all frames. Great. We're ready to go. All right, so we've got our project all set up. Let's start throwing down some keyframes. I'm going to drag my playhead to the beginning of the timeline here, and we're going to create a bounce very similar to what, in fact, pretty much exactly the same as what we did with the first bouncing ball in our first project, right? So we're going to want that ball to bounce down to the ground. It's going to accelerate to the ground. It's going to stick on the ground a little bit because we're making like an exaggerated bounce. And then it's going to bounce back up into the air. And then we're going to repeat that whole process over and over again. The nice thing is that I have a way to repeat this that's much better than just copying and pasting keyframes for you guys. And so we'll get into that in a little bit. But the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my playhead all the way to 0, and I'm going to select my actual die, right? In fact, I'm going to add a protection tag onto my backdrop here so that I don't accidentally move my backdrop in case I just start dragging things around, right? Because sometimes I do that kind of stuff out of habit. I don't mean to do it, but it just kind of happens, right? I'm just going to organize this as I go. So if you see me moving stuff around, that's what I'm doing. All right, so the Y coordinate of the die, let's maybe put this at 0. perfect 0 there. I think that should be okay if I'm looking under here. Not terrible. It's touching that, so if I bring, in fact, it'll be easier then for me to bring the backdrop down. Deleting that protection tag and just dropping that backdrop. Because it's just easier to remember 0 and to type 0 in for the die when I go to animate the Y position than it is to have the backdrop at a perfect point, right? So again, rigging tags, protection, right there. Cool. Save my work because I've got it all set up. And select my die. And the die is going to start in the air, so I'm going to hop into my camera real quick so I can see just kind of how high this is happening. And I'm going to bring this up. Let's see, let's bring it up. Let's do 50 over here. I'm going to actually manually type in or let's do 75. I like that one. Nice high jump, right? And I'm going to keyframe that. And then I'm going to head about 8 frames because I want this to be a total of a second, right? So maybe we just move to 24 frames. That's our 1 second. And I'm going to click on this keyframe that I just created. And I'm going to hit Control and drag those keyframes over here to the 24 where my playhead is so that I already have the upwards bounce, right, happening. And then I'm going to move my playhead to 8 frames here. And we're going to put this back on the ground. So again, selecting my die, typing in 0 because I know that's flat on the ground, and keyframing. Again, remembering that when you guys do this inside of Cinema 4D versus After Effects, move your playhead, right? Type in your value or make your change and then record it, right? The yellow, again, when it's yellow, it means that there's been a change applied and you need to record it. And the little diamond, the little keyframe right here will also be yellow until you actually hit record. If you don't do that, then you're going to go back and your movement isn't going to be recorded there. So we have our animation blocked out for the bounce here, right? So if I play this, it goes down and up. Timing, I could adjust a little bit, maybe the timing in the center here. So maybe I want to take this one and move this in an extra frame and move this one in to frame 9, and this should be on frame 15. Perfect. So just tightening up that little floor section where the dice is on the floor, right? I don't want it on the floor for too long, but I do know that I want the entire bounce to be only 1 second total. So I really want to mess around with these center keyframes and not these kind of bookend keyframes is what I like to call them, because this is like establishing how long my entire animation is. And I think the 1 second is a good timing for this. Now, at this point, you can come in here and we can go into our F-curve mode and hit H on the keyboard. H for, I don't know, hot dog. Will bring you guys, it'll center your curve or keyframes, whatever you're looking at. Also remembering that when you're inside at your viewport here, holding down 1 and clicking and dragging allows you to move. 2, clicking and dragging allows you to dolly in and out. And then 3, clicking and dragging allows you to rotate, right? Well, similar to here, obviously you can't rotate, but if you hold down 1, you can, and click and drag, you can move. 2, you can zoom in and out. Okay, so just, and then up and, like if I'm holding 2 and I'm going up and down with my mouse, it allows me to do that. And then if you get all lost and stuff, all you have to do is hit H for hot dog and it brings it back. So we have to obviously make this bounce, right? So it's going to hit the surface and then a hard motion out. We need to accelerate to the ground and then decelerate on the way back up. Well, when I do this, I kind of want to be a little bit more precise. So I'm going to hold down Shift and I'm going to bring this up here, making sure to kind of keep an eye on where my graph is in in the F curve mode because I want to bring this little Bezier handle up to a point where I can kind of mark it with this one as well. So that this keyframe, the change in that one and then this one right here are similar to each other. The cool thing is that when I'm moving my mouse around inside of the curve area, there's these little white like notch that's up at the top and actually over to the side here. When I unzoom out, you'll see. And then wherever I move my mouse, those end up going. So you can kind of use that as a measuring tool, right? So when I'm moving down, you see to the left, there's this little notch that goes up and down, and then the right allows me to do that. So I can kind of gauge where I need to be. All right, so I'm going to bring that about to here. And then I'm going to do the same right here. Holding down Shift allows you to break that Bezier handle and drag that up. And then I'm going to kind of just bring these out a little bit more. Holding down Control allows you to lock it from going up and down, right? So Shift breaks the Bezier handle. Control allows you to lock in your motion with your mouse. Again, doing this one, grabbing, holding Control, and then zooming out. Let's see, this one's about from this keyframe to this Bezier handle. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then if I check on this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I think I'm going to take this one and move this back. Holding Control, just dropping that in like that. All right, so now I have an appropriate bounce. If I go jump in my camera view and I play this back, it should accelerate towards the ground, stop on the ground, and decelerate on the way back up, right? I'm going to save my work. And let's add that squash and stretch into here. So I'm going to jump out of my camera. A lot of jumping in and out of the camera is what you guys are going to end up doing too. So it's just, and that's why I have the protection tag on there so I don't forget about it. Because if I'm in here and I try and move, I'm like, what's going on? And then I'm like, oh no, my camera, I got to reset all of it. It's okay. Let's zoom in a little bit more here. I think that right about there is going to be good. And I'm going to hit H on my keyboard here. I'm going to actually jump into my dope sheet view. And we're going to add that squashing and stretching. So the first thing that I want to do is because, the first thing I want to do is kind of lock in the initial value, which is 1, 1, 1, right? Because we want the scaling, again, whatever you deduct from one or add from one value, you need to deduct from the other two, right? And so if I select my die and I come over here and I look under my scale options, I'm going to first record this initial 1, 1, 1 scale so that I have the original set. And if you're looking, I know that the keyframes inside of Cinema 4D are much harder to distinguish, right, than they are in After Effects. In After Effects, you get separate little lines for each one of these, and these you don't. Again, if you hover over the keyframe inside of Cinema 4D with your mouse, it will tell you the value of that keyframe, right? So now I'm like, oh, centimeters, 0 centimeters, and that's got to be a position, right? But if I hold it over this and it gives me 1, 1, 1, oh, that must be a scale thing, right? And then it would show degrees for if you were to change your rotation. Now, you can also just click on the actual value right there and it will highlight those keyframes for you. And so I'm just going to copy and paste this keyframe from the beginning to the end over here. So I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to click and drag. And that's going to just allow me to copy that 1, 1, 1 keyframe for this initial scale over here at the very end. And so I'm going to bring my playhead to the center where the ball or where the die is on the ground, and we're going to flatten this sucker out. So let's go here, and yep, we're going to change the Y scale. We're going to reduce the Y scale and then expand out the X and the Z. So I'm going to probably put 0.6 here. I think I found that's a good one. And then because we've taken 0.4 away from this total, we're going to add it to these two. So 1.4 and then 1.4. And again, we've made a change here, right? It's notifying us of this change that we've made. And so we need to click on these to record them all. So I'm just going to go click, 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 recorded, right? All three of them. Now, if I kind of change the rotation of my view here so I can see the die, it looks like it's still maintained the same amount of volume. You know what I mean? So if you guys haven't updated one of these, like if this one still remains at 1 on the X value and you guys start moving this dice around and you're like, oh, that looks weird, that's not right, that's because your value is incorrect here. So you just want to make sure that you keep the whatever you take away or add to the Y, you deduct from the X and the Z axis. Okay. And so we're going to move probably a few frames. Let's see. So we're in the center. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's move 6 frames over. And we need this to be stretching, right? Now it's got to stretch towards the ground. This obviously is moving towards the ground. And so we want the opposite here to happen, which would be 1.4 on the Y, if we're keeping the same exact values, right? That's pretty much what we want to do here. And 0.6 on the X and the Z axis. Do you guys have any questions in the chat on is there any confusion that you guys have right now going on with like adding these values or anything like that? Also, Logan said, you'll be going to a convention at the end of the week. 1 week after you get your wisdom teeth removed. You're not the first one in this class who's had their wisdom teeth removed. Must be popular right now. I had my wisdom teeth removed when I was like 16. And it got infected because my mom was making me sweet rice. And you're not supposed to have rice. She didn't think about it. It was like, or like rice pudding or whatever. And a piece of it got stuck in the hole. It was terrible. But interesting, right? I want to copy this over to this side, right? Because whatever we do on this side, we mirror on this side to do opposite. So let's move over 6, which is going to be 18. And I'm going to select this one and control and drag that here. So we have, nice. We have a nice squishy looking, bouncy looking, if I look through here and I start here, a nice squashy looking dice. Well, we need to create this dice, this bounce, right? At least 3 times, because in the assignment it says you want to have 3. So you could always copy and paste these keyframes. Not a problem. But I have a different solution here, which makes it much easier for you guys. So I'm going to hit H on the keyboard just to kind of center this. And I'm actually going to go into the F-curve mode. And in fact, while we're in the F-curve mode, let's look at the scale. Let's select the scale of all of these guys. Jump into the F-curve mode and just kind of create, right? We want to make it so they're all, or we want to, words are hard for me today. We want to exaggerate the easing, right? So I'm just going to grab these ones, holding down control to lock it and pulling it this way. And then holding down H, grabbing them all again, selecting all of them, making sure, holding down shift and grabbing these ones too. And then I want to pull them this way, control. And then I'm just going to grab these two. No, I think that should be good actually when I watch it. Yeah, nice springy looking die there. And so I'm going to go back to the dope sheet view and I'm going to select the position here. And when you look over here into your attributes property, when you select one of the properties over here on your left hand side inside of your dope sheet, you get this option in your attributes panel and you can loop these animations, right? So the couple options that you get is before, to loop before the animation, or to loop after. Because we're creating this animation at the beginning of the video, right? We're pretty much always going to use after. I've never used looping before. It's just not something that's as common. But the after we use all the time. And so instead of constant, right? Because it's just one bounce, constant, that bounce, and then it ends on this frame, and then it doesn't do anything, right? We obviously want to change that. And so we're going to drop this menu down, and we're going to go to repeat, right? And so that's going to repeat that bounce. We also have to do it to the scale, because what's going to happen here is when I play this, if I don't do it to the scale, you're going to see the squashing and stretching happening initially, and then it's not going to happen after the first bounce. So in fact, because the playhead wasn't at the beginning, so now it looks rather dull, right? And so you have to make sure that when you repeat one, you have to do the same to the others, right? To your other or not coordinates, but your properties. And so I'm just gonna again select the scale over here at the left hand side, go over to after, and go to repeat. And so now when I play it, the animation should loop. Let me just double click on this. Make sure, oh, I hit continue, not repeat. There we go, repeat. And nice, we have a squashing and stretching die. This looping, you get a lot of mileage out of looping animations, actually. It's something that, inside of After Effects, we had to use an expression for. Well, they have absolutely built this into Cinema 4D. The cool thing about this is if I pause my animation, I bring this playhead over to the beginning, and I go into my F-curve mode, and we look at the position, right? Let's pull up the position here, hit H, and then I start to zoom out of this timeline here so we can kind of see more. You can see that the initial keyframes that I put down are in green, right? Obviously, if it were X or Z position, it'd be red or blue here, but we have because it's just a Y, we have the green, but then every iteration after that is black, and that's because these are essentially looped options. The power of this is if I want to change any of these like the curves, or I wanted to change the timing, it updates on every single iteration afterwards, which is really nice, because if you had copied and pasted all of these, you're going to have to go in and make those changes manually. Whereas this way, you only have to make the first bounce, right? You only have to make the first squash and stretch, and the rest of it, all the work is done for you. And that way you can come in and adjust things a little bit at a time, and it will adjust it the rest of the way. You don't have to worry about, going throughout the entire timeline and doing that. Now, with that being said, okay, it's very important with looping. Let me write this down because this is important for you guys to know. Seamless loops have to have the same timing and value and keyframe values. Here, let me see this. At the beginning and the end. Okay, so what does that mean, right? They have to be exactly the same at the beginning and the end, or you're going to have a hitch in your animation. What does this look like? Let's say H on the keyboard. Let's go back into our dope sheet mode, and let's watch this. If I were to come over here and select the position and go back, grab my die, right? And I don't want all of them, just the one on the end. And instead of 75 centimeters, I put this one at 50, and I record that change, right? And so now when I zoom out here, we're going to watch what's going to happen. There's going to be a hitch in this animation, right? Okay, so the hitch is like a jump, right? See this little jump that happens right there? It's because my beginning keyframe and my end keyframe are not the same exact value. So they have to be the exact same. That's why I think it's important to learn how to copy and paste keyframes inside of Cinema 4D or inside of After Effects, because it will, help you from accidentally typing in the wrong thing. And that's why having exact numbers for your different properties, right, is also important. So I'm going to change that back to 75. I'm going to record that again, make that record. I'm going to just check my curve here. Yep, everything looks good. I'm going to save this work. And the other thing I wanted to show you guys is if we were to offset, because I know I've been talking a lot about offsetting, how offsetting looks good, but if I were to take the scale, let's grab this one, and offset the scale, the beginning and end keyframes of the scale, what's going to happen is it's going to desync, because the length, the timing of the scale animation versus the timing of the position animation are different. And like I said, they have to be the exact same time in order to continuously loop seamlessly, right? So if I play this now, you're going to see that all of a sudden the squashing and stretching is going to like desync from the position changes. And so now it's looking all sorts of weird and kind of like not quite right. Like things aren't, like if I go here, like it's starting to stretch out there. So you have to make sure that these keyframes, the scaling keyframes or the scaling property keyframes and the position property keyframes line up at the beginning of the end as well. Exact same timing, okay? Now, we're going to, we didn't animate any X positions here, so I'm actually going to push this one off to the side so that we can throw in a ball here, because we're going to do this tune animation. So I'm going to throw in a sphere. I'm going to hit T on my keyboard and I'm going to scale this down till it's about the same size. Bring it up. Close enough, maybe a little bit smaller. T, bring that right about there. Actually, let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's see if I can make I think that's okay. Let me see if I can select the die and do a scale like that. I don't think I can. If I do that, it's going to mess it all up. Yeah. All right. So we are going to, if you want to change the scale of the die, do it in the beginning. The sphere, I'm going to drag this down here. I'm going to rename it to Toon Ball. And I'm going to jump into my camera and see kind of where I want these to be placed. So, in fact, I'm going to drop this protection tag off of my camera, and I'm going to kind of rotate this a little bit more so I can see the top there. Looks really cool. Maybe pull out just, or zoom in just a tad. Rotate this a little bit this way. That's a cool angle. Then I'm going to throw that protection tag back onto my camera. I think that's where I'm going to keep this. And then the tune ball, I'm going to hit E on my keyboard and move that over here. And probably move the die back over a little bit more too. There. All right. And so manually, what we did just now with the dice is we manually created a squash and stretch. Well, before, when I was telling you guys about these effectors here that go on your objects, there's deformers that work as well. And in fact, there is a deformer in here called squash and stretch. And so we're going to actually apply this deformer to the ball, and we're going to use this to create the squashing and stretching. And it's going to be a little bit different. The values are not the same as like scaling and stuff like that, but we will get through that. So with the deformer, I'm going to add this to my scene. And I'm going to bring this down and drop it into the ball. The ball actually has to be the parent to the deformer versus the effectors have to be the parent to the object, right? So the parent-child relationship is essentially what rigging is, right? You guys kind of read about rigging, kind of like a skeleton. I noticed a lot of you guys talking about like character rigging is a lot of skeleton type things, but rigging is also like, think of it as like linking things, right? So chain or links in a chain. So at the top of the chain, you have your parent, right? The head honcho, the boss. They call it your parent. All the little links underneath that parent are the parent's children, right? So no matter what the parent does, the children follow, right? So if the parent moves, the children will go with it. We're going to obviously touch on this more in the next project. But the children still have the availability to do their own things. They still have their own properties that go along with them. But overall, they follow whatever that parent does, right? And so when it comes to effectors, they have to be the parent and the objects have to be the children. When it comes to deformers, the object has to be the parent and the deformer has to be the child, okay? And so it just, that hierarchy looks like this, right? So here we have the parent, which is the ball, and the if and the deformer, which is the child, right? Versus where we have the die over here, right, with the subdivision surface, we have the die, which is the child of the effector, which is a subdivision surface. Okay, so making sure that you get this little tiny bracket down here will show that one is the child to the other, to the parent. Okay, so just making sure that this looks appropriate when you guys are ordering this. I mean, I think this is a good spot to like maybe take a quick screenshot or just make a note that the effectors, right, the green ones, these ones are parents, the deformers, the purple ones, these ones are children, okay? Or else it won't work. So if you find yourself throwing this in here and it's not working, then you obviously know you have to change your linking of the objects to each other. Now, when I select this squash and stretch effector, or I'm sorry, deformer here, and we go into the object and I start changing like this factor, it's obviously changing things, but it's not changing that in the middle of the ball, which we want to happen, or in the appropriate place on the ball. It's actually changing it from the center of the world. And that is because the anchor point of the deformer is put into the center of the world and not at the center of the object that you attach it to. And so we have to update this, right? So we want the deformer's anchor point to be in the exact same spot as the ball's anchor point. And how do we do this? Because you can obviously go into your anchor point mode right up here and then trying lining things up over here in your multiple views, but that's a lot of work and it's time consuming. And so thankfully Cinema 4D just kind of put a little parent here, or I'm sorry, a little button here that just kind of mitigates that problem. And that button down here is called Fit to Parent. So make sure that you click this, and what will happen is you'll watch this anchor point. When I click this, it's going to center itself into the middle of the ball. And so now when I change the factor, it's actually squashing and stretching on the actual ball itself. And so obviously you see that the squash and stretching is done using the factor. If I were to, let's increase this a little bit and then see what these other values do. If I start messing around with the top, what that's doing is, and you can actually see how, if I go on my camera view here, you can kind of see how that deformer is actually working on the ball itself, right? So when I'm updating the top, you can see that deformer. If you were to see like a box of where it was, you can see it almost moving itself down the object and where it's like actually affecting that object. I don't remember where it was naturally. I think it was right there. But so this, putting the deformer on the object and then just kind of messing around a little bit with the values allows you to see like what is kind of happening. So the center is allowing me to change where that squashing and stretching is actually originating from, right? And this is important because this is when the ball is moving down towards the ground, right? We want the mass, a majority of the mass of the ball to be at the base, right? But when that ball is flying back up into the air, we want a majority of the mass to be at the top of the ball, right? Because of the way the ball would, like if you're thinking of throwing like slime into the air, it's the way that that slime, the essentially force of it moving upward, and this part is going to tail behind. Now the bottom allows you to change where the bottom of the, you can see right there where the bottom of the deformer is, right? So you might have to update these if you throw an object into here that is too big for the actual deformer itself. So I'm just going to go back on that. The aspect allows you to change like the aspect of the squashing that's happening, like where it's changing. I'm going to undo that. Expand allows you to look like expanding and tapering off that squashing and stretching. Smooth start. Here, let me go back. Smooth start allows you to smooth out those kind of edges there so you guys can, and then same with the smooth end, right? So if I were to change the center of this to be this way, and then I were to change the smoothing the end, it would make it look more like a raindrop instead of like, it just gives it more of like this eggy kind of look. And then the curvature, let's see what this one does. This allows you to update obviously the curvature of the object. So if I were to put the center right in the middle and then we were to change the curvature here, it allows you to kind of taper off those ends. And then like you can see how it smooths, like if I were to go back, change the smoothing up there, we got like a peanut look instead. So I'm just going to drop the smoothing of both of the ends down because we don't need that. The expanding, we obviously don't. We're probably not going to touch that one, so I'm going to change that one back. The curvature, we'll bring that up to 100. Really, the one that I'm going to be focused on is going to be the center right here and the factor, right? So the actual squashing and stretching of the object. How much squashing and stretching is actually occurring there. And so this doesn't have to be, the factor actually doesn't have to be extremely varied, like as far as percentage goes, right? Because this works in percentages and not like centimeters or anything like that. And so I'm actually probably not going to change this too much because I don't want an super extreme looking squash and stretch to where like the object is kind of blown out, right? We don't want to do that. So we've got first of all, let's create the bounce first, and then we will really start to hone in the squash and stretch. Let me put this back at 100 so we don't have any squashing or stretching happening. And let's get this bounce down. So I'm going to grab the tune ball itself. We're animating the ball first. And I'm going to go to coordinates here. And I'm going to type in 110 to bring that over to a specific spot. And then also let me do that with the die. So let's put -50 here. There we go. And just so that there's even numbers here, not decimals. I like that. I like even numbers more. And then let's start with this at 75, right? Because that's where the tune ball is. If we jump into our camera view, they're about at the same height. And bringing your playhead all the way to the beginning, let's keyframe that. And then we're going to grab the tune ball here. Let's see if we can hide this. No, that doesn't work. Hide the layers. Well, we'll grab that. Just grab the tune ball there, and then I'm just going to hit Control and drag it. I want the bounces to be the same timing. And so then we're going to move to, where did I have it? Hits the floor right here, right? So that's where I want to change the value of the ball to be on the ground. We'll type in 0. In fact, 0 is not going to work because the ball, the anchor point is in the center of the ball. So we're going to have to bring that one up a little bit more until I'm going to not look at my camera. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into my quadrant views here and zoom out right here. And then just drag the ball up until the base of it is right on the ground as well. All right, looks good to me. What is that? 22 almost. So I'm going to type in 22. I'm going to hit enter. And that looks good. I'm going to keyframe that, right? You guys can work within these views as well if you need to. And then I'm going to, it's going to go back up. Where's that? This is where the dice leaves the ground, so we're also going to add that as well. So I'm going to just type in here 22 and keyframe that value as well. I know that this gets really convoluted, especially because there's like so much going on, and so really hovering over each one of these keyframes to see what value is what, or selecting the actual object over here in the corner is going to really help you understand which ones you're holding on to and looking at versus the other ones. In fact, I'm going to, when you furl up the object there, it just kind of hides all those other extra keyframes. And so now we have the tune ball bounce happening. We want to make sure that this actually loops, right? So selecting the position here, and I'm going to go to constant and change under after and change constant to repeat. And let's update the curves here. So jump into F curve view, select the Y position here. Let's zoom out so you guys can just see all of the other updates that happen to the rest of the curves, just to see it. All right, I'm going to select this one and holding down shift, I'm going to break that and bring it upwards. Right to there, looks good. And then I'm going to do the same here. Holding down shift, breaking it, and bringing that up. Right there. If I zoom out, you can see that it updated all the rest of the curves. If I move that over, the infinite bounce, right? And so then I'm going to grab this one, holding down control to lock it. I'm going to just drag that over to about the 4, right? Because 4 little graph notches is what I did before. I'm going to do the same over here. Holding down control to lock that value, right? And so now if I play it, we've got this, oh, we're just selected into this view. If I just grab into the default camera view, you can see the bounce happening. Perfect. I'm going to save this work. I'm going to stop this. Control S to save. We're going to bring this up. And I'm actually, I'm actually going to work in the front view, I think, for this one. And I'm going to shut off the text so I don't have to see it just in my preview. And I'm also going to shut off the die just so I don't see it right here and I can focus on the actual squashing and stretching of the ball itself. And I'm going to zoom out, and then I'm also going to shut off the camera here just so I don't see all those lines, right? You can even do it to the backdrop if you just want to be consistent. Just double clicking on these little dots right here just allows you to remove it from your render preview, but then if you were to like go through and hit your, or I'm sorry, it removes it from the viewport, but not the actual render itself, right? So just keeping that in mind. All right, and you can see the deformer, you can see the edge of the deformers right here on the ball. So let's go ahead and add our bounce in, where I'm going to hit H on the keyboard to center this. And let's move to the beginning of the timeline, because we know the beginning and the end have to be exactly the same in order for the loop. And we're going to select the squash and stretch deformer, and we're going to go into the object here. And we are going to keyframe the factor at the beginning and also at the end here. We're going to keyframe that. And then we're also going to keyframe the center at the beginning and the center at the end here. Right, like that. In fact, I'm going to go into dope sheet view so I can see a little bit better. And we're going to move into the center where the ball is on the ground, and we are going to increase the factor, right? Because it's going to increase the squashing and stretching. We're actually going to decrease it. Dropping it down will squash it out. Going above so below 100 squashes, above 100 stretches, okay? So we're going to drop that probably to, I'm going to drop it to 50, maybe 45% looks kind of neat. And I'm going to keyframe that. And then I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up here, right? Is because where we want the stretching to happen. But this section of the bounce is going accelerating down towards the ground. So when we stretch this one, right? So let's update the factor. So before we did, what was that? 45%. So let's do, what is that subtracted by 55%? So 155 would be good right there. Let's keyframe that there, and also keyframe this right here. And let's update now that we have like the squashing and stretching happening, like stretches, hits the ground, squashes during that time, and then is going to stretch on the way back up. Did I not keyframe that factor? I thought I did. Maybe I didn't. The factor should be 155. Keyframe. Ooh. Yeah, no. Okay. It did it on the right one. There we go. Okay. We have the stretching happening right there. It's going to squash on the ground and then stretches on the way back up. Okay, perfect. I just had to update some of, like, one of the things. I, again, changed the value, didn't record it, right? So it didn't make the change there. So we also recorded a second ago the center, right? So we have the beginning center value recorded, which is 100, or I'm sorry, negative 64, which is like 0%, right? And then we have it at the end as well when we need to make those updates to where the stretch is happening on the acceleration to the ground, right? So the mass of the ball should be more towards the bottom and not towards the top. And so we're just going to update the center here. In fact, I'm just going to crank it up to 100 right there in keyframe. And then the ball's going to squash. And then when it stretches back up this way, we're going to bring it all the way back to negative 100 and keyframe it there. In fact, I think the edge ones should be at 50. I think 50 looks centered. Yeah, so I'm going to, 50 is right in the middle. So I'm just going to update the center values here and make sure, I'm going to play through this and make sure that it doesn't affect anything else. Okay, that's cool. So a majority of the weight is at the bottom. If I scrub through this at the bottom, hits there, squashes, stretches back up, and a majority of the weight is at the top. That looks good. Now we have to address the issue of the ball being in the air, right? Because of the center of the deformer, or the center of the deformer being in the middle of the ball, right? And not on the bottom. That's where the squashing and stretching is happening. So we can either change the position of the ball to drop down further here. But if we do that, actually, let me change this here. We have to grab the ball itself and we have to change it over here. What is this? Squashing, coming back up and stretching. Actually, we're not going to change the position of the ball. We're going to change maybe one of these. No, let's not do that. Let me change, not expand, undo that. Curvature. Oh, curvature kind of might be a good one, right? So just bringing that down to 0. Let's see what that looks like. I think the curvature could be maybe at 50. Looks kind of cool. In fact, we can actually take the squashing and move this keyframe. Oh, not all of them. You just want to make sure you grab the squashing keyframe and move that over here. And so that way we can move the actual tune ball down to the ground. If we show our backdrop, let's see how this works out, right? Okay, so the backdrop's right there. Good, we've dropped the, we're gonna drop the ball to the ground here. I didn't save my change, that's why it jumped back up. So I'm gonna select my tune ball, go to coordinates, and then I'm gonna bring this down to, it looks like 10 will work. I'm just gonna change that to 10, enter, keyframe it. Oh shoot, did that change all of them? No, it did not. And then right here, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to change this one to 10, enter, keyframe it. And then we need to change, we need to bring this squashing, we need to copy and paste that and drag that over here because it has to be the same, right, on both sides. So then squashes, kind of brings that down a little bit and then goes back up because the center is changing. What is changing? Let's see which value is, because what I'm noticing is when I scrub through here, you can see that these edges, it looks like the center is updating right here. So let's see that change in the actual squash and stretch. Let's see which value changes when we're going between here, which it is the center, which means that maybe we're going to have to update the center percentage. So if I click on the squash and stretch tune and we're here, this should be the center value, 45. And bringing this back over here, click on this, squash and stretch, go back here and just enter in 45 again. Change that so then there's not a change. There we go. And it looks like, so if I bring the value over here, I'm just double checking that this center value is at the same on every keyframe, right? So, well, not every keyframe when you're mirroring it. So at the beginning it should be 50, at the end it should be 50. So if I hit H on my keyboard, at the beginning I look here, it's 50%. If I bring my playhead over here, it's 50%. If I bring where the stretching is happening over here, if I bring my playhead here, we have negative 100. This side should be opposite, right? Because of the weight, we need the weight to be at the bottom and not the top. So if I bring this over here, it should be 100. Perfect. And now we need to see this squashing right here needs to be at 45 there. And then if I bring it over here, it should also be at 45, which is perfect. Okay, so that works. Now the distribution of the curvature, because I changed the curvatures, is the reason that this, oh, I don't want to do that. Close the manager. Click off of that. There we go. Oh, shoot. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Let me undo that. If I were to adjust the curvature back to 100%, you get more of like that eggy shape. But I just dropped it at 50% so it's not so chaotic looking. Or, well, not as squashy and stretchy. But if you guys like it, the curvature at either 100% or 0%, you can do either or, right? So you guys can have a little bit more fun with these values, just making sure that it doesn't like look full on pancake mode when it's on the ground here. And so now we need to, let's go back into our regular view mode here, and then let us turn on everything else, right? Because we want to just make sure that we don't forget to turn this stuff back on. And looking through the camera here, and now if we play this, it's not going to loop, but not bad. Let's maybe offset the squashing here, right? So whatever change I make on this side, I have to make this side. So I'm actually going to bring this 1, 2 in. 1, 2 in. Let's see what this looks like. If I play it, I like that a little bit more. I'm going to save that. And then I want to select this squash and stretch, right? And then come over here to after and make sure that it repeats itself. So now if I play this, nice. We have a nice squashing and stretching happening here. In fact, I think that the stretching could happen a little bit longer, right? So I want it to stretch for a little bit longer before it starts to squash. And so I'm going to select the squash and stretch here. Let's just drop this down. And I want to change the factor in the center. These ones over here. Okay. These ones right here, I'm going to grab this one and move this one in twice, 2 keyframes. And do the same with this one over here. Right, so I'm going to grab this and move it back 2 keyframes so it's exactly the same on one side of the bounce versus the other side of the bounce. And so now if I play it, the stretching should happen and it squashes right when it hits the ground. Nice. That looks good. Perfect. I'm going to save this. You guys can go into the F-curve mode and just kind of grab these and just holding down control, just kind of dragging them out to just accentuate them a little bit more if you want to. Grabbing and holding down control. And so that way you get more of a faster squashing and stretching that's happening there. Or a little bit more like obviously where the curve slopes the fastest, like over this section here, the change is happening a lot faster. So in fact, I might just take this one here and soften it a little bit more so it doesn't have such a hard holding down control so I can lock it. There we go. Not bad. I'm going to hold save here. And then what I'm going to do is let's have the die and the ball kind of bouncing at the different times because I think that they're 2 in sync right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my dope sheet view and hit H on my keyboard and grab the tune ball, everything for the tune ball, and just kind of move it, or just grab this here. And if you grab this yellow bar at the top, you can move the entire, you can slide the entire animation, right? So I'm just going to bring that over there. And then when I play this, though, we might have an issue with the looping, so that's why I'm just replaying this. But it doesn't look like it. Let's kind of make this a little bit more dramatic and move it a half a second. So what will happen is this one will start first and then this one will go. Okay, so let's play this one. Let's see what happens when it gets to the beginning. Okay, so what happens at the beginning is this will stop, right? So we don't want that. Let's see what we can do to mitigate that issue. If I go to the tune ball, drop this down here, and we go to repeat, maybe repeat before and after. Now if I play it, will it repeat this here? Nice. Let's just keep watching it. Nice. Yeah, so you can repeat. If you come in here once you're done with everything, once you've got all your animations blocked out, and then you adjust the timing so one ball's bouncing, so they're like, you know, bouncing every other one. You just have to make sure that you come up here and you select your tune ball, and then you also put before on repeat so that the actual animation repeats before the keyframes are there. That is when you want to use those before repetitions, right? As you want that animation to happen before your actual keyframes that you put down is when you turn on this before repeat. And if that doesn't make sense, let me know and we can discuss it more. But let's add some we're in the appropriate view. Let us add in here. Let's close this down, or just kind of minimize this now that we've got the animations going on. And now we can make it look pretty, right? So let's pause this right here. Let's save it. Control S to save. And let's start putting on some materials. So the first thing I think I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move the text back a little bit further. Maybe right here. And then also, I think I want to change the, not a big fan of this one. What was that? I know who was in the chat the other day when we were going over the typography projects. There was like one text that I really liked. Do you guys remember what that one was? I think it started with an I. Let's go up here and look. H-I. I don't think I have it on here, actually. Lotto. Lotto? Yeah, that was the one. Because of the curved kind of A's and stuff. Let's try bold. Let's even go black. Is there black? Bold, 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 italic, regular. Okay, so there's just the bold one. That's cool. Or we can do the Poppins one I always like, or Montserrat. Montserrat. I always say that wrong. That one's chunkier, but I like it. So let's put the align middle there and then change it to 50. Make it a little bit smaller. Let's bring this in here. Okay, so we can make it bigger than that. Let's try 75 again. Oof, just too small. 65. There we go. Cool. 65 works. I'm just going to kind of nudge this over so there's about the same distance on this side versus this side. And then I'm going to move it up a little bit more. Then maybe increase the depth. Maybe we want to go to 30 centimeters. Let's see how that looks like when I bring it up to the top. There we go. I like it at 20. Let's drop this down right there. And I'm going to save this. Maybe if we do rotate it, let's see what we could do with the rotation. Coordinates. -45. Let's see what that looks like. No, I don't like that. It looks kind of awkward like that. Select the text. Let's go to the caps, to the object real quick. Or no, let's go to the caps here. And then we want to fillet the cap so that it has like a beveled edge. Size. Okay, so it already has the fillet on it. You just have to go to under caps here. There's already a start and end fillet happening, or the caps, right? And the bevel is right here. So we're just gonna increase this to like, let's do 0.7 looks fine. And then the subdivisions at 3 is fine. We don't need to extend that anymore because it's not very large and we don't need a ton of detail in that section. Letters. Cool. I think that looks good. Let's start adding some materials on this thing. So the first thing that I'm going to do is throw in my interactive render agent so I can get like all these sections in here. And the first thing that when I do that, what you guys notice is that there's already a material on the die itself. And it's, first of all, it's pretty shiny, right? But it's also transparent. So I'm going to show you guys how to change the color of that. And then we're going to do a cool looking change to this tune ball here. And then we'll throw on some other materials. Now, when it comes to materials, I'm going to open the material manager right here. And let's go ahead and also open the asset browser, and under materials, let's just type in, I like that plaster material a lot. I've been into that lately. So plaster, I'm going to drop that onto the floor. Cool. Let's change the, actually, I don't want that one for this. I kind of want to like smoother matted one. So let's do the plastic with the diffuse on it. which kind of like gives you like more of this matted look. And then if I double click onto this, let's see if we can update. I think the color, the luminance is the color that is distributed on the material based on the light, I believe. Under reflectance, I think this one is where we struggled with the last time. Under texture, under art, if I can click on this color profile. I think last time I tried to use this and I had to change it because we were, which I think we can do. Yeah, let's just do, I'll show you guys how to make a custom one real quick. So up here under create, first of all, if you're deleting materials out here and you had put them on your objects, make sure that you delete the tag here off of the object line, like the layer right there, so that you don't have a bunch of question marks backing up there. But I'm going to go to create, and let's create a new default material. And we're going to double click on this material here. And under color, we can actually update the color. Let's find a cool color palette. Coolers. Super fast color palette. No, I don't want those cookies. Reject all. If only they were real cookies, I would definitely accept them. Could you imagine if like it's all like, do you want the cookies? And then a nice hot chocolate chip cookie comes out the bottom of your computer. Oh, I'd be massive. I'd be eating cookies all the time. Okay, start generator. Okay, not bad. Cool. That's very corporate looking, you know, orange and blue is like super corporate-y. This one's neat. Let's do this. Tickle me pink. Okay, cool. So I'm going to take this code here. I'm going to copy it for the tickle me pink. This actually, we're going to do the backdrop. So let's do the backdrop, this melon color. Copy. And I'm going to go in here. And what you notice is there's no like hex code option here. I'm just going to change this over to here. If you just click on this like color, these little arrows here, it gives you options to change like the way you input colors. So including you can do this here too. So if I just click that and then I go here and I just hit paste and I get the color right away there. Okay. And then let's add this to the backdrop here so we can see it live. And then under reflectance, let us kind of drop the reflectance down. I want it to be pretty matted here so that we're not like really focusing on the backdrop as much as we're more focusing on the actual objects themselves. Let's add a luminance here and under texture, let's see. Oh, a gradient texture. That might be cool. Let's double click on this. So you can change gradients under shader. If I add luminance, again, this has to do more with the light source moving over that. So let's, under the gradient, let's put in the initial hex code number, right, that we have for the background. So it's the same color. And then on this one, we're going to do the same, but we're going to like increase the darkness of it. So I'm going to put that in there, and then I'm going to click on this. I'm going to hit OK, but I'm going to double click on this again and go back into the RGB mode, or hue, saturation, brightness mode, and we're going to make it like darker. Let's make it a little bit darker. Let's move it towards the magenta side a little bit more. Cool. And I think that makes like a cool looking material. But let's kind of drop the luminance brightness down on it so we still get a lot more of that color kind of showing through the actual object there. Or on the... We can change the mix mode. Brightness, let's drop this down to 18. Maybe put the color in as the original color that we had. So that hex code color pink, let's do that. So that's kind of like the base for it. And maybe we can change the mix strength and change the adding normal. Let's drop that down to 50. Perfect. All right, cool. So we have this kind of cool looking pink material for the background. Let's duplicate this, and so I'm going to put in here backdrop. I'm going to rename my material, and then I'm going to just, you can right click, and I think you can, I thought you could duplicate that way. You can also just hit Control C, Control V and copy it. And then I'm going to name this one ball, right? Because we're going to do like the tune ball one. So let's drop this one onto the tune ball. And let's pick a different color from those codes. So it wasn't here. It was right here. Let's pick this Tickle Me Pink. Copy that and bring this into here. And so we're going to double click onto this material. And what we want is we actually don't want the luminance right here. The color, we can go into the color and we're going to put in our new hex code. So clear that, paste that one. So we've got this cool looking darker pink. And under the reflectance, we are actually going to go down to layer color. I'm pretty sure it was under the reflectance one. Under texture, we are going to put in Fresnel. And we're going to double click on this gradient here and then go into the shader. And what happens is when you bring in, let's see here. We start to bring in the lines. No, that wasn't the right one. Is it in the luminance channel? Maybe it is in the luminance channel. Let's go, instead of gradient here, let's go into Fresnel. Yes, okay. So under the luminance panel, not the reflectance one, and instead of gradient, we're going to go to Fresnel. And then we're going to double click the gradient and go into the shader again. And so what you want to do is you want to take these colors, because this gradient bar works like any gradient bar in any other program, right? So you have like how the division is being made here, like how smooth the transition is from one color to the other. And the closer that these little handlebars are to each other, right, these colors, the harder of a gradient line you're going to get, right? So the further away it is, the smoother the gradient. If you guys are looking up here, smoother gradient, further these are away from each other, right? But the closer they are, you're going to see a hard line. You're going to see a hard line happen, right? So bring that in there. And you get almost like this outline on the actual object itself. And so in fact, if you want a smaller outline, I think you have to drag this a little bit more this way. There we go. And let's change the colors here. So the black, I'm going to put in that hex code and then darken it up. So if I go into this little hashtag mark, type in my hex code of that pink, right? And we're going to do the same right over here. So hashtag mark, paste the code for the pink. And I think this one's the one we want to darken up. So I'm going to go to hue, saturation, and brightness. And we're going to bring that in here and get it nice and dark. In fact, we're going to saturate it a little bit more here so it's a nice dark color. And then we're going to push this more towards the purple. And we're going to hit OK. And so now we get like this kind of hard, dark purple outline. In fact, if I want to make it a little bit more standout-ish, I'm going to move these over a little bit more to the right. Let's see here. Oops, let's undo that. To give me more of a thicker outline, you can do that if you want to. I think I'm going to keep it over this way a little bit more. I like that thinner outline look on here. And I'm going to close this. So now we have like a tune ball with an outline. And let's see, what else do we want to do? Let's change the color of the actual die to be something within this color palette that we have. So maybe this, in fact, I think I'm going to change the background to this color, this pale dogwood. Let's go back in here, and all I got to do is go into this backdrop and go into the color here and into the hex code and paste this one. And then we're going to also go into the texture and update these, right, under the gradient texture. Let's go to here and type that in, okay. And then this one, we're going to do the same, but we're going to darken it a little bit, right? So we're going to type this one in, and then we're going to go to the hue, saturation, and brightness, and we're going to just bring that a little bit over here, make it a little bit darker, a little bit more of that orange. Let's bring it more towards a red, actually. Hit okay. And then we're going to also check in the reflectance. Do we need to do anything there? Actually, let's drop the reflectance off so it's just fully matted. And nice, we get this kind of pale peachy color. And the so the dice is this black, this red material, right? So if I double click on this, and we go into the under the transparency, this absorption color is the color that you're going to want to update. So instead of this red, we're going to do that dark magenta color. Copy that. Go into here and change this to this dark magenta color. Okay. So the absorption color is a little bit different. So that's like the absorption color is how light is absorbed through a transparent object, and the color that like shines through that. It's kind of let's see. Let's get the actual definition up here. Cinema 40. I guess it's not going to tell me there. You can also just right click the, I think you could just right click this right here and go to show help. And this should pull it up. How you guys doing in the chat? All right. The absorption color is the color that is multiplied by the color when a ray of light has traveled the distance defined as the absorption distance. The transparency channel also has two colors. These are defined as the color, right, which the color that appears in a very thin object like a window pane or film, and the absorption color, the color of a massive object assumes, right? So you will always set the color to white, but not always. When you're creating glass, you will almost always do that. Let's see here. Oh, interesting. You can add it to both of the objects here. So you can have like the absorption is different. Increasing absorption distance values from left to right. At the left is a very low value, slightly greater than 0. All glasses have the same color, which is white, but the absorption color is green. So if we want this lighter, if we want the dye to be lighter, we should, it looks like, change the absorption distance. So if we're over here and we want it to be less dark, we should increase that. So let's type this into like 50. Ooh, cool. In fact, let's drop it. I want it a little bit darker, so like maybe 25. That's neat. And then let's change the color to the actual color of the dye here. Let's see what that does. Okay, so that's not bad. We can maybe drop the brightness down of that. Keep the brightness up. Let's maybe increase the absorption distance. Let's go to 100. See what that does. Oh, okay, that makes it more like a brighter, like almost more colorful, like more saturated color, right? Let's change the brightness is going to make it darker. We don't want that. Can you increase the brightness beyond? No, you can't. So let's make this color a little bit lighter to bring out. There we go. Cool. Oh, neat. Yeah, I like that color. So now when we look at the dye, I'm going to close this, and the dye looks so cool. Sweet. Okay, now let's find one material for, actually, let's use this plaster material for the text. So instead of dragging it onto the text itself, I'm going to drag it into my material manager and then bring it onto the actual text so that it, so that I don't accidentally drop it onto my backdrop. Cool. So everything looks really good. We just need to add some lights into here. So if I go to the light over this side, let me close the material manager here. Let's kind of shut off the render preview region. And actually, I think I might have to fix the ball because it shows it kind of down. Let's see what's happening here. Let's move this back to the beginning and check on these down keyframes when it's down on the bottom. Let me move to the, this is kind of what it's like, a lot of just back and forth. Front view. Here. All right, so it is, okay. Oh, because the before and after is on it, so let me shut off the before, repeat before. Let's shut that off. Okay. Maybe I didn't. I'm just going to undo that. Keep it the way I had it. It was fine. It's not a big deal. It just kind of... So if I play this... 1, 2, 3... Yeah, not bad. It's okay. It's fine based on the... I don't think it'll be a big deal because of the camera angle. Yeah, so perfect. Now we can render this out, right? So let me go to, or actually we need the lights. Almost forgot. Let's kind of clean this up here. Let's create a new null and name one of them Studio. Name it Studio. And then drop in the camera and backdrop. And then that's where we'll put the lights. And then I'll put one here that says Objects. Objects. Drag that below the studio, and then drop in all of my actual objects into that. There we go. Fill that up. So it's just cleaner up here. Let's save this. And then under our studio, let's add some of those lights. Let's add a standard target light. Again, if you can't find it, just hit Shift-C and you can search. And then let's not look in our, let's drop this and the target into our studio real quick. And then let's not be looking through the camera because I'm going to need to adjust these lights. So I want to put kind of go up and back a little bit so I can see where everything's getting targeted. And I'm going to grab this light target and move it perfect. It's kind of really nice centered there. I'm actually going to put 2 lights in. So I'm going to put this one on the die. And I'm going to increase, I'm going to select the light itself. Let me shut off the camera so I don't see the lines of that. And then I'm going to just, you can see these tiny little dots right here. I'm going to grab this and increase the area of the light so I get a little bit more of a wider, ooh, which way do I need to go? This way? Let's grab it and come on. There we go. Give that a little bit of a wider view, and I'm going to rename this to key light. Rename this to key light target. There we go. And then Under here, I am going to maybe use the temperature instead of color on this one. And I want to make it warmer. So maybe, let's see, 6,000 Kelvin. Not bad. Let's do 5750. There we go. It's nice and warm. Let's drop the intensity maybe to like 80%. No, we'll keep the intensity of the key light at 100. And then we want to turn the shadows onto shadow map soft, right? So then all of a sudden we see these shadows and we can see the light actually traveling through the die here, which is really cool. And then we're going to duplicate this, and in fact let's change the we'll have the key light and the key light target, but the next light that I add, I think I'm going to add it just like a spotlight, not an actual target light. And I'm going to move to my different views, zoom out of here a little bit, move around so I can see what's going on. Zoom out of here, move around, zoom in a little bit, you know, in and around and out. And then I'm going to take this light and I'm going to move it to the side a little bit. I'm going to move it back. And then we obviously need it to go up, so I'm going to move it up. And we want to point it down, so I'm going to hit R for rotate on this. Oh, let's see here. Oh, I didn't hit R. Let me go back to this light and hit R for rotation. And I'm going to rotate this down so it's kind of pointing towards the actual objects themselves. And then I need to rotate it in this top view too, so it's more at an angle, right? In fact, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to zoom out a little bit more, move around, and then actually move this a little bit further over this way. And maybe a little bit back further. And I think that should be okay. I'm going to expand the size of this one as well. And then let's go into our camera view. Okay, so that looks cool. On our light, we're going to drop that into our studio. We're going to change the name to Fill Light. And I'm going to drop first of all, I'm going to turn the shadow map soft on. But then I'm going to drop the intensity of this one down to like maybe 50%. So, or a little bit higher, 60%. And then we're going to change the color of this one. So instead of like, we can do like a purpley pinkish colored light. Very light kind of color of that. Ooh, neat. Now they changed the color. This is an update. So they changed the color of the like essentially wireframe of the light so you can see which one is which color. That's pretty cool. I haven't done that in a while. And then maybe if we increase the intensity, you can see how pink that gets. But let's just drop that back down to 60. Let's turn that interactive render region on right now. So I'll turn back into here, and we'll turn on that interactive render region so we can kind of see what it looks like. That's pretty neat, not bad. Let's increase the shadows on the key light. Ooh, and it also neat. Look, it also changes it up here too. You guys, that is exciting. The key light, I'm going to drop the temperature down a little bit. I think that it's a little bit too warm for my taste, so I'm going to bring that up to 6,000. I think that will brighten it up a little bit more. And then under the shadows, the density of the shadows, can I increase that a little bit more? So I can get more of like a shadow dense area in this text here, so I can differentiate like the gaps in the text, especially since I have the text flat on the ground. I wanted to kind of increase this. Let's see, 150%. And then yeah, I think that looks nice. Let's go ahead and get ready to render this. But I wanted to show you guys one more thing real quick before we do jump into rendering. With this deformer on the tune ball, you can drop this into any object that you want. So if I were to grab a, let's see, pineapple. Do we have a pineapple? Not in, let's go to all. Pineapple. Cool, we have one right here. Let me drop this into the scene. Whoa. Oh, wait, that's an entire scene. Let me undo that. It just opened it up in a new thing, so no, I don't want to save that. Let's go back into our squash and stretch here and find, like, I don't think I can use that. So let's just do an apple. I know I can for sure use an apple right here. Just a regular one, not the Cinema 4D or the Maxon one. Let's scale it. All the way around and move it. And if I were to take this deformer and copy it and paste it into the apple, it will also do that. But remember, we have to just go up to the apple or to the squash and stretch, fit to parent, right? So then it adds that on there. And then we might just have to adjust the deformer a little bit to fit the actual apple. So I think it's the updating the top and updating the bottom, right? We'll update where that deformer allows you to be in there. And so if you like how big the deformer is, right? The top and bottom is how big that deformer is. But then you can just add any kind of object into that and it will have the same squashing and stretching happening to it, which is really cool, right? Because that's really powerful that we did all that work in there and you can just drop it onto a whole different object. I'm going to delete that off of there and I'm going to save this and we are going to render it. So go to viewport renderer. In fact, let's shut off the wireframes real quick. So N and A will allow me to shut that off. And we'll go into here under viewport renderer and just double check everything that we set up before. Looks good. Save, looks good. Everything's good. And we're going to render it out. And let's start, if we hit H here, I thought H will center that. Cool. My shadow's turning out a little bit funny on that one. Let's see if it's actually doing that because I might have to change that density of that shadow. Let me just hop over to here. 3D PNG sequences. Let's go into this. Let's actually look at that image. Yeah, so I'm getting artifacts in the shadows. So I'm just going to close this out. I'm going to stop this render here. Shoot, how do I stop it? Right up here. This is turn, yes, I want to stop. And I'm just going to remove all those images from that folder. Let's go back to the desktop. I think this is the most involved part of the project. Motion design principles, PNG sequence, squash and stretch. I haven't done this. There we go. Let's delete that. And let's go back into here and let's update these shadows because the lighting is just not working. So we'll go into the studio. Let's go into that key light. Let's go back into the shadow and change this down to 100. Not 1000. 100. Looks a little bit better there. Well, kind of. It still has the artifacts. So let's go back into that fill light. Everything's the same on here. General. Diffuse shadow showing. Shadow map soft. Spotlight intensity. We dropped the intensity down to 50 on that one. The key light. Where is the issue? Let's pull up this interactive render region. Yeah, so it shouldn't work. It shouldn't be that way. Maybe it's the renderer. Maybe under the viewport render, if we go to shadows, check off, check on, check off, check on, transparency, filter geometry only. That's good. Let's render out one frame and see what that looks like. Current frame. Close this, render. I think it did. It already do it? Is it already done? Took like a split second. No way. No way. Burr, burr. Lots of clicking. No, it did not do it. So it's preparing this. Something's going on with Miranda. Yeah, stop calculating that image. Let's clear the... Ah, I'm getting a little freezing, just letting you know. My computer's pissed. Let's close this out real quick. Good thing I saved. You're still preparing this? Let's Control-Alt-Delete. I'm still here, you guys. Just turning on the task manager. Let's close down Cinema 4D and reopen the project. Bring this over here. Might have been because I was adding all sorts of crazy crap into it for a while. Okay. This is interesting. Ooh, we don't need these. Let's delete that. Go back into our studio. First of all, let's turn on our interactive render region and see what's going on. Okay, so the material on the camera, first of all, turn that on. And the material on the text, what's happening with that? Let's delete that material off. Sometimes it's just a lot of back and forth. Control R real quick. Maybe something's going on. Let's try our lights. Let's go back to that key light. I might not have saved that change I made to the shadow. Yeah, okay. Let's change this back to 100. Save that. Everything's saved. Shadow maps are on. Shadow here. Okay, perfect. Let's add that plaster back to the text. It's just not liking that right now. Let's maybe find a different... Let's use that kind of matte blue plastic. I guess it's not going to want... Doesn't want to use that material. Plastic. Let's use this... Let's use this green one. And then we will just drop it on the text. Let me delete this other one. And then let's change this. The color of the... We can keep it kind of like a greenish color. Let's just drop the saturation of that green down. And go back into the luminance and change this a little bit more up to this white. So it's just kind of like a hint of green. Let's look at that. Okay, so there's something on the text. Sorry, you guys, I'm just looking here to see why my text isn't showing up. Make sure the animation's working. Yeah, animation is working. Maybe what I would probably do at this point is redo the text a little bit. In fact, my materials are all having issues. So maybe it has to do with the lighting. I would maybe redo my lights. Let's try this real quick. Because this is like troubleshooting that's going on, right? So, okay, let's not look in our camera. And let's go back into our view like this and add another light. So I'm going to go Shift C, and then I'm going to hit or type in target light. And I'm going to double click that and add that into the scene. And let's move this target light over a little bit more. Let's move the target itself. Let's keep the target in the center, but just kind of move it in the center of everything. And then select the light itself. Have that maybe more face on, and then increase the size of it. Increase that, and then maybe the focal, like length of it, right? So it's bigger. And let's go into the selecting the light, right? Let's change this to key light. And go into general and turn on the soft shadow maps, shadows. And then let's change this to use temperature. So it'll just kind of maybe leave it at the 6500 Kelvin. And let's add in another light. So Shift C and just type in spotlight. And make sure you're using the standard one, not the redshift. Double click on that one and grab the light here, and then we're going to move it off to the side. You can use a target light if you want to. And then I want to bring this one up as well, maybe up a little bit higher. Zoom out. Let's hit rotate and rotate that down and over so it's facing the objects, and then extend that. Maybe zoom in on that a little bit more as well. And then we want to turn on the shadows on this light. So rename this to fill. Fill light. Let's turn those shadows on. Drop the intensity down to 60. Change the color a little bit. Maybe it's soft pink again. Go back in here. Let's jump into our camera. And fingers crossed. No. Okay. If I go into the standard renderer, let's try this. There we go. Standard works great. So I'm going to switch into my standard renderer. And I'm going to take these lights. Standard renderer should work fine for you guys as well. The physical one will be a little bit more intense. Like if I bring this down to physical render, and then I do that, it's obviously takes a lot longer. It's a lot grainier. You see a lot of that grain happening in there, noise, which we don't want. So I'm just going to change it back to the standard renderer, not redshift, but standard. And I'm going to go to save here, make sure that it's in the appropriate spot, which it still is. PNG with alpha channel, that's great. We don't need a multipass on there. Let's shut that off. Because multipass means that it's going to run through and do another pass on it. We don't want that. 1920, 1080, all frames. Perfect. And let's start to render this, see what happens. All right, you guys. There we go. Looks much better, right? Perfect. I'm going to hit H on the keyboard. So do you guys have any questions before I end the class here? What we're going to do is we're going to, I think getting this part done, if you can, before class on Thursday would be fantastic. Oh, shoot. You know what I'm not seeing are shadows. Let's stop this. I see some shadows, but they're just light. Okay, so the shadows are in there. They're just not that, they're just really soft, which is okay. So that's fine. But you'll want to continue. Okay, don't do that. Can I continue to clear cache? I don't think I can. Once I stopped it, I have to start it over again. Yes, I want to overwrite. Okay. So yeah, so we're gonna start with this one here. Try and get this one done before class on Thursday so that you guys are like ahead of the game. I think that'd be great, especially because I don't think this one will actually take you this much time as, you know, it's taken the as far as the class goes. But Thursday's class, what we're going to do is the rest of the assignment, which is going to be the impact, um, learning anticipation through impact, and then also doing the mass, so the heavy and the light ball, which will be very simple. Those ones take just a couple seconds to do. The longest one out of that is the impact, using anticipation through impact, which, you know, we'll get done pretty quickly. But and then also on Thursday, once we're done with those two lessons, we'll start going over your guys's real and surreal scenes, and just start doing some grading of that. So, do you guys have any questions in the chat so far? Or no. If you don't, I'm gonna let you guys out of class a little bit early today. If you have any questions in the meantime, you guys can go ahead and write me inside a Discord. Jasmine, I don't know if you're still in the chat, but we will be going over. I will contact you tomorrow about getting that fixed for your Cinema 4D, and maybe we can watch me go through it because mine expires in 3 days, so I need to update that as well. Yeah, all right. Jose, thank you for sticking around, buddy. I hope you have a good night. Enjoy your guys' Tuesday evening, and I will talk to you and actually see you guys on Thursday. So, adios.